Hello again, and welcome to Pappy O Drain reads a children's storybook. In festive garb, no less. Today's selection is Owl Moon by Jane Yolen. I'm sure it will be lovely. Again, Owl Moon by Jane Yolen. Illustrated by John Schoenherr. And I've seen this before. Lovely little pictures. And she says, for my husband David, who took all of our children owling, to my granddaughter Nissa, for when she is old enough to go owling. What a lovely sentiment. It was late one winter night, long past my bedtime, when Pa and I went owling. There was no wind. The trees stood still as giant statues. And the moon was so bright the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere behind us, a train whistle blew, long and low, like a sad, sad song. Very poetic, this Jane Yolen. I could hear it through the woolen cap Pa had pulled down over my ears. Lovely tree picture. A farm dog answered the train, and then a second dog joined in. They sang out, trains and dogs, for a real long time, and when their voices faded away, it was quiet as a dream. We walked on toward the woods, Pa and I. And look, there's a little fox. Our feet crunched over the crisp snow, and little grey footprints followed us. Pa made a long shadow, but mine was short and round. I had to run after him every now and then to keep up, and my short, round shadow bumped after me. But I never called out. If you go owling, you have to be quiet. That's what Pa always says. I have been waiting to go owling with Pa for a long, long time. It's lovely to do things together with your Pa. Not this Pa, your father. Pa, yes. So, we reached the line of pine trees, black and pointy against the sky, and Pa held up his hand. I stopped, right where I was, and waited. He looked up as if searching the stars, as if reading a map up there. The moon made his face into a silver mask. Then he called, hoo, 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 hoo. The sound of a great horned owl. Hoo, 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 hoo. And he called out, and then again. After each call, he was silent, and for a moment we both listened. But there was no answer. Pa shrugged, and I shrugged. I was not disappointed. My brothers all said, sometimes there's an owl, and sometimes there isn't. I have a great affinity for owls and all birds, really. I've been owling myself. It's wonderful. We walked on. I could feel the cold, as if someone's icy hand was palm down on my back. And my nose and the tops of my cheeks felt cold and hot at the same time. But I never said a word. If you go owling, you have to be quiet and make your own heat. I would think so in the cold such as snowy as this must have been. The page made noise. We went into the woods. The shadows were the blackest things I had ever seen. They stained the white snow. My mouth felt furry, for the scarf over it was wet and warm. Your breath, as you breathe into it, You expire moisture. I didn't ask what kind of things hide behind trees in the middle of the night. When you go owling, you have to be brave. I should think so. Then we came to a clearing in the dark woods. The moon was high above us. It seemed to fit exactly over the center of the clearing, and the snow below it was whiter than the milk in a cereal bowl. I do love cold cereal, all manners and forms of it. I sighed, and Pa held up his hand at the sound. I put my mittens over the scarf, over my mouth, and listened hard, and then Pa called, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo." I listened and looked so hard my ears hurt, and my eyes got cloudy from the cold. Pa raised his face to call out again, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees. Hoo, 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 hoo. Lovely. Pa almost smiled. Then he called back, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo," just as if he and the owl were talking about supper or about the woods or the moon or the cold. I took my mitten off the scarf of my mouth, and I almost smiled too. Right there. The owl's call came closer from high up in the trees on the edge of the meadow. All of a sudden, an owl shadow, part of the big tree shadow, lifted off and flew right over us. We watched silently with heat in our mouths, the heat of all those words we had not spoken. The shadow hooted again. The pages turn with a noise. Owls fly silently. They make no noise, so as to sneak up on their prey. Pa turned on his big flashlight and caught the owl, just as he was landing on a branch. For 1 minute, 3 minutes, maybe even 100 minutes, we stared at one another. Owls are so beautiful. Then the owl pumped its great wings and lifted off the branch like a shadow without sound. As I told you before, they make no sound. It's lovely when one flies over your head, which has happened to me at night. It flew back into the forest. "Time to go home," Paul said to me. I knew then I could talk. I could even laugh out loud, but I was a shadow as we walked home. She felt a need to remain quiet, sort of in a reverence for the experience. When you go owling, you don't need words or warm or anything but hope. That's what Paul says. The kind of hope that flies on silent wings under a shining owl moon. Which brings us to the end. And also, this book was awarded the 1988 Caldecott Medal. It's an award-winning storybook. Such a lovely time. I hope you enjoyed it as well. So, for Pappy O Drain story time, goodbye.